Okay, we're recording. Matt Goss, how you doing?
I'm really good. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. It's nice to hear an accent that sounds very similar to mine. And
I know. Where are you from, by the way?
Essex, Essex.
Essex boy. Well, I
Mm.
left my shine. I've got a bit of a black eye, and I'm not. I'm like, I tried to cover it on Good Morning Britain the other day, and I wore some glasses and stuff, and I look like I had a green face. So, I'm embracing it.
Oh, if anyone can pull off a shiner, mate, you're doing a stellar job there.
Thank you, mate.
Well, Matt, before we get on to the playlist, we're looking at the remainder of this year is going to be a far more connected and positive and exciting place than maybe the first half of this year. And so just looking back over the last 16, 17 months, how have you found, the situation that we've all been sort of had thrust upon us? How have you found it both personally and creatively?
I think without question, I think we've all been forced into a place of self-reflection, and I think it's been great at times, and it's also been extremely troubling at times because we crack on with our lives at such a pace that we kind of we do not look left and right sometimes at things that possibly are distressing to us or disturbing to us. And doing 4 or 5 shows a week here for 10 years, in America, and it got to a point where I felt like I was abusing my body, my life. I didn't ever. It was just all about entertainment and making sure people felt, you know, transported. And I really wasn't really addressing some of the things within my own life. And I I realized that this issue of mental health and everything became very, very deeply important to me. And it's my French bulldog Reggie.
There he is.
And, that's why he's not literally not messed up one interview I've ever. He's literally not one. But I felt very connected to the way people were feeling. And I realized that when I was doing my Instagram lives, that I actually didn't know my fans. You know what I mean? After 30 years, I've been singing to them and I had a sense of who they were. But then we got into, who they were and some of the troubles they were going through. And then people that were not my fans started to come into my space. And that's when I also started my own podcast. And I completely detached myself from music. I had no interest in making music again. I had no interest in singing again. So it was quite an extraordinary thing. Ironically, the connection that I found talking about much deeper issues was the reason that I actually ended up wanting to make a new record and realizing there were indeed people that wanted me to keep going. And because when you're in one place and you're singing in one venue, although it be Caesar's Palace, most famous casino on the planet, it's a very isolated place to be when you're driving home at night. You can't expect people to be excited about what you do every day. And I would, the person I'd always call would be my mum, and she's up there. So you sometimes you desperately need to have a conversation about what you've just done, but you can't enforce that on other people and expect them to care as much as your family would. But a long-winded answer, but I think that really it's been a period of growth, and for some people have elevated and some people have regressed, and I think all of us have cut away some of the fat. I mean, I've definitely let some people drift off peacefully and just realized that neither one of us serve each other, and I've just with hopefully not too much resistance.
Absolutely. I think so many people have, used this time where the breaks have been, put upon us anyway, to use that time to just reflect and assess things. And, from such an awful situation that we've all been, involved with, hopefully we will all come out of that, with a little bit more of the fat trimmed off, and be happier and more positive people from that. Couldn't agree more with you on what you just said there, Matt. I'm going to start the playlist now, and I always start with the song that you regard as having the greatest ever intro, please?
You know what, you're gonna have to help me because I don't have the list
That's
of
fine.
mine.
That's fine. So you went for the Who,
Mm-hmm.
and Won't Be Fooled Again.
Whenever I hear this intro, I don't think there's ever been a time I've heard this intro where I haven't got goosebumps.
Yeah.
I do think they are one of the greatest rock and roll bands in music history, one of the most authentic bands. I was lucky enough to have a great conversation with Roger Daltrey. He gave me some insight about things that I will never repeat, but it was an incredible conversation, incredible human, just a humble, loving person that just has this kind of Peter Pan kind of rock and roll energy. He's just an incredible person. But I always find that when I meet the people that I love their music, it goes to a whole different kind of stratospheric kind of place where I'm just like, yeah, you know. And when I hear this, it is the personification of rock and roll. When this moment comes on, you want it to go on 5 times longer than it does.
Yeah.
But what an intro.
So in regards to intros, over the years that you've been producing music, you know, if we go way back and to, you know, to the early years, and it was, I guess we could, you know, and I say to the greatest respect, like mainstream pop music.
I love pop music. It's a great word for me.
And I think back then the pop song was short, sharp, to the point, you know, hook lines. And then, I mean, you've chose something like the Who there, and that's a very long intro. And it's a bit proggy in places with the sort of arpeggio synth before the guitars drop in and things like that. And so, as you know, over the years, you know, that have followed, you know, the early music, we've seen the way that people also listen to music change dramatically. So, you know, from the days of buying CDs and vinyl and cassettes and stuff through to streaming services. And what I see now, and if I look at the way that my children get their music, they've got very fast thumbs that just seem to have very short, it feels like the attention spans are getting slightly shorter. And so with that in mind, it's a long-winded question, this, Matt, but I just want to ask you if the way that people are listening to music and streaming, and we're looking at music now, seems that so many songs now I hear on the radio start with a chorus now, and it's, you know, they're quite short songs. Do any of these kind of movements and trends in music find their way into your songwriting process, or are you still very much a traditional style songwriter of, I write what feels right when it feels right? Do you get where I'm going with that question, Matt? Sorry.
It's not a long-winded question. Is every syllable is necessary, because it's everything you said is true. And the truth is, back then you were not writing music with the law that it has to be. There's a kind of understanding that it has to be somewhere around 320 right now. And so in a way, people that aren't songwriters don't understand you have to condense a story into 3 minutes and 20 seconds is an art form, and you have to really to try and tell a story and create an emotion in that short amount of time is very difficult. But back then, that wasn't the case. I mean, you would hear songs that were much longer with much longer intros, and now people are like, you got to get to the chorus within 1 minute. Which is, to me, is quite horrific in some ways, because let's be honest, the freedom that a painter has is limitless. I mean, you would never say you've got to use fuchsia when a painter wants to use, you know, salmon. You know, it's a small difference to some, maybe, but to a painter's eye, it's life or death. And I think that it's important to talk about what you're saying, because the attention span has got extremely short. The way that music's delivered is different. Physical product there was a sense of occasion with music. When you went and bought a CD, or I'll go back to a cassette, or when you bought vinyl, and then the CD, there was this sense of occasion that you were going to buy a physical product, and you were going to own it, and you were going to look after it and read the liner notes of who played on the record, who who was part of it, where did you record it, and all these images would come into your mind, and you would create this kind of story about how this record came about. And now it's a digital file. At least now they've started to upgrade the quality of the digital files, which is good news. But again, to answer your last part of your question, does it find its way into my songwriting? Absolutely, it does. This record I've just made, I would only listen to commercial music for 6 months. While I was making this record, 6 to 8 months, I would not listen to any of my influences because they're embedded in me. Stevie Wonder, you know, Donny Hathaway, you know, all these, you know, Duran Duran, all these bands and singers that I grew up listening to, they're embedded in me anyway. But they absolutely did have an effect because I wanted to write a current record.
Yeah,
I didn't want to be out of the loop, and I also want to stand my ground with, you know, radio programmers and people like that, you know, so I can say I know exactly what I'm doing. It isn't rocket science. If you are a musician and you understand what you've got to do, you do have to study and you do have to stay current. And I think it's a healthy thing. Although I don't like certain elements of it, I think it's healthy to go along with it. And in regards to the word pop, you know, the Beatles were pop, the Who were pop, Rolling Stones were pop music back then, you know. So we have to be careful, I believe, how we use the word pop, because we don't quite know what we're listening to sometimes at that time. You and I both know we've heard a pop record 20 years ago that now has become a bit of a classic.
yeah.
So we've got to be very careful, I think, how we receive pop music and just allow it to breathe. If the Beatles were thrown onto the scrap heap because they were screamed at, we would have lost some of the most beautiful music on the planet of our time. So just I like to be very mindful when I listen to music.
Well, I'm going to take you back for track 2, Matt, and I'm going to ask you please to tell me the first song you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you. And I can give you a nudge because you did just mention Donny Hathaway.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about this singer that, knowing his personal story, knowing his, you know, just also knowing how much Stevie Wonder loved him, Mr. Donny Hathaway is a singer that to me just moves my heart and my soul. It doesn't matter what the song is. I just feel his true understanding and his authenticity of every note. And I covered this song on an acoustic guitar, and this song is A Song for You, and it's the lyric in it as well, the complete self-deprecating lyric that, you know, acknowledges that you've not been good to somebody, and talks about his mortality in the song, and it's just extremely emotional to me. That can go for anything he does, but this song in particular really moves my heart.
If you had to pinpoint what that emotion was, what would it be, Matt?
Truth. Honestly, people, you know, you talk to mainstream media sometimes and you say things like, if you undress your soul, then so will the audience, and you get this bullshit, you know, like, oh yeah, another analogy or whatever, you know. It's like it's absolutely true. If you've been on stage, if you don't actually undress your soul and just speak truthfully to an audience, you will not get the audience that you want.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to dare to, you know, the amount of times I've gone on stage and said, I've had a crap day today, it's going to be a good show.
Yeah.
You know, because if I've had a crap day and I'm in a bad mood, sometimes it's going to be a great show, because it, you know, never waste good agony, you know, like, go out there, but be honest with your audience. They deserve it. And more importantly, they can handle it.
If you've had a, you know, you wake up and you're feeling low, you're having a blue day, do you reach for Duran Duran, or do you reach for something somber? Do you just try and pull yourself out of it, or do you process it and put music on that, you know, is gonna almost soundtrack, you know, feeling a bit blue, and kind of just work your way through it by almost sort of giving that emotion, you know, a musical cuddle, for want of a terrible, you know, description?
Well, No, I think that that feeling of many people will relate to the feeling. I think most of us just want to feel safe. Most of us just want to feel safe.
Yeah.
And you get to a point in life where you find a certain groove within yourself. And when you get to that place where you can be more emotionally intelligent and speak about emotions, and you know, even you just said emotional cuddle, like you're like you said it's terrible. I don't think any form of language, as long as it's colorful and it creates an image and there is analogies and similes and metaphors, I'm all for it. Why do we want to dumb down the English language? It's a beautiful
Yeah.
language. So um, I'm all about emotional intelligence and the acknowledgement of what you're feeling when you're feeling it. So a lot of musicians don't listen to music when they're sad, because we want to get away from anything musical, because it makes us think about, I mean, you hear every note and it's almost invasive music sometimes, because you're surrounded by it and you're talking about it and you're on stage and you're creating it. But I would say if I'm feeling sad, if it's about my love life, for example, I don't. It's really hard for me to listen to sad songs, because I hurt to to, to an abyss. You know, I really do, and I love hard, and I hurt hard. You know, I came out of a relationship in COVID and I really loved this woman, but we couldn't find common ground. Now, you know, and it was time for me to accept as that it was just, you know, we couldn't find common ground. And but I don't mind the pain that goes with that, because you're meant to hurt, you're meant to, otherwise what's the point, you
Yeah,
know?
completely.
And I think music can heal. And I will put on songs in the key of life, or fulfilling his first finale, or Inner Visions, a talking book. You know, I will put on Stevie Wonder, and just, and he will always lift my spirits, always.
I'm going to ask you for track 3, Matt, to tell me the song that reminds you of your time at school, please.
Without question, this band, just everything about this band, even now, I love. Uh, I just love that they're still together. You know, when you see a band after all these years, certainly when I've been in the industry 3 decades, that they're still playing, it just gives you such a beautiful feeling. But when I was at school and I was wearing Stay Press, and I was wearing waffle cardigans and Fred Perry's and Doc Mines, and my loafers, my bowler hats, my trilbies, the legendary specials. I mean, Ghost Town, to me, again, incredible piece of music. It's certainly, if you again listen to the lyric and understand where that song came from, and it was meant to be the death of ska, you know, and they're talking about all the clubs are being shut down, and there was too much violence around the music, um and ironically that song kind of, you know, kicked ska in its ass. It was an amazing moment in music when you could start feeling, you know, that new romantic kind of wave coming in, and which I also love. But ska music to me will be with me for life, you know.
Yeah.
um,
And that's sonically, that record, it's just feels like it's just been beamed down from somewhere. I don't think it sounds like anything else the Specials do, and I love the Specials, but that song, I've got this thing where I think some bands have this one song that is, I'm not necessarily saying better than the rest of their catalogue, but sounds completely different from anything they've ever done. And I'll get onto that, because another one of your picks today is one of those. But I think, like, Ghost Town, it's so eerie, and you know that once you've heard it a couple of times, you know that euphoric bit is going to kick, you know, after the second chord, and it's just glorious. And just seeing, you know, Neville and Linville and the band just going crazy, while slap bam in the middle is Terry all deadpan, don't crack a smile. It's just just one of the coolest bands to ever walk this planet. And yeah, absolutely incredible record. Whilst we're back there at school, like, how was that for you? Did you enjoy school?
No, not at all. I hated school. I just, because we moved like 10 times, so we'd have to constantly go into another school, and and there was never a real sense of um, nothing was permanent. It was very transient, and it was exhausting, if I'm honest, and a lot of fights, a lot of stay in your territory as you do as kids, and just it was almost violent, our schooling. It was just but then I eventually found a drama teacher called Jane Roberts, who is the reason why I think I'm doing what I'm doing. She didn't care about the academic side of my time at school, although I loved Mr. Brooks and biology, and I had a massive crush on Miss Simkovich, who used to wear fishnets and play her accordion, which was extremely out of order, really. I mean, with all our hormones going through the roof, she'd sit on the counter with her legs crossed and her fishnets playing an accordion. I mean,
outrageous.
And Mrs. Funnell actually as well. Like she used to wear fishnets as well. I think that's when my love of fishnets must stem from. I just realised of an epiphany.
Have you got an unhealthy relationship with an accordion as well?
I don't know. I think is there such a thing as an unhealthy relationship with an accordion? I think whatever floats your boat, Stu. But, I think that I think that I couldn't wait to get out of school, and I had my first band when I was 12, and I was number one in 36 countries simultaneously when I was 18. So, people ask me recently, what did you do during your clubbing days? And I was like, it was just we had a different start, I guess. But me and my brother couldn't wait to get out of school, really.
So there was never any other career path other than, I imagine at the time, pop star.
Well, I had a massive love of Vidal Sassoon, and I was obsessed with Vidal Sassoon and the geometric cut and the impact that he had on fashion in the 60s. And I was lucky enough to meet Vidal Sassoon actually at an Elton John event in LA. And we chatted, and I told him, because my mother was a hairdresser, and the sound of scissors, even to this day, I'm getting a haircut today, even though what I've got left, but I'm hanging in there, Stu. And and we, I thought I wanted to be a hairdresser. I wanted to, wear the 3-piece suits and do it right and be part of pop culture. And then, to be honest with you, I had a Saturday job at a hair salon, and I was just washing hair and just, it just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I romanticized Vidal Sassoon, and that's where I thought I was going to go. Before that, I thought I was going to be a vet, but I'm talking super young. But I was going to be, ironically, I was going to be an actor. My brother went into that field, and then when I sang cabaret, everybody seemed to like my voice, and I didn't even know what that meant. Yeah. But it just then we had our first record deal offered to us when we were 16 by Arista, and the day that we were meant to sign with Arista was 16. They passed on us. We thought our life was over. We were like, oh, it's done. Anyway, so a year later we met Tom Watkins with the Pet Shop Boys, and a year after that we were, as I said, all over the world, number one. But it was great, because we just, sorry to go on, but we were in the restaurant.
That's fascinating,
and the fella that actually was meant to sign us to Arista was in the same restaurant with us, and we were number one in Britain and all over the world at the time. And we walked up to him to say hello. We were excited to see him. He thought we were coming over to say, I told you. But we were just happy to see him. He went, I know. I went, no, we're just happy to see you. And he was like, but his response was, I know. But it was good. It was one of those moments for a musician that, if I'm honest, was quite a nice moment,
Yeah. Well, for track 4, I'm going to ask you to tell me the first record you remember buying from a record shop, please, Matt.
And first record I remember buying from a record shop is, again, I was asked recently, my favorite, also another one of my favorite intros, and I described this as the most beautifully brutal use of a cowbell, and just one of the most badass grooves ever. And this is Low Rider by War.
What a tune that is. Why don't the cowbell get used more? It's every time I hear it in a song, I'm like, why does that not get used more? It's so effective.
It is a tricky instrument. It's a tricky instrument because it's so dominant. It's so dominant. So I think nowadays an analog instrument sticks out like a sore thumb on a beat, because now we're using big samples on, the bottom end on records these days is through the roof. Some of the bass, I was in a studio in the record plant recently, and I've been recording there for 25 years, and they had some clients in there. Every single speaker in the record plant was blown, and I've never ever experienced that. And you're looking at thousands, tens of thousands of dollars per unit. And but a cowbell, very, very dominant, simple instrument. But in this song in particular, I don't think this tune would exist without that instrument. I love it. One of my favorite songs of all time.
Remember where you bought it?
I was in Camberwell. I know where I bought it. I was in Camberwell, and I was with my Aunt Sally, and I couldn't wait to get that 45, put it on. I still remember those days with such fondness. Camberwell to me is, without question, where I felt the best times of my life.
Yeah. I mean, you've mentioned like the Beatles and bands like that, and Stevie. Like, growing up, was it a musical household?
Without question, my God. 37 Crawford Road in Camberwell was a place that you would either hear Frank Sinatra, Mel Torme, Stevie Wonder, Donny Hathaway, Ian Duran. You'd hear Free, Cream. It was just an incredible array of music, but I mean all the time. And everyone was singing. It was just full of music. It was just full of like energy, but it was so many different genres.
Was you a confident kid?
I don't know if I was. No, I don't know if I was. I think we were good kids. Yeah, I mean, we were rascals. Me and my brother, we were double trouble. But having a twin, there is a sense of like, if you mess with me, you're messing with him, kind of thing. So we did have that. We were double trouble. I mean, we had that kind of energy about us. We really did. But I think when you ever come from a broken home, you do have that abandonment issue where you're terrified that your mum's going to walk out, and we did have that. We did have that abandonment issue where we worried that was going to crumble. Our family was going to crumble. But apart from that, we did have. We were not wealthy on any level. We were pretty poor, I would say, in some ways, but we were rich in love. My granddad was a gunner in the Second World War, and my nana died when she was 50, and my granddad never remarried. But my granddad was a foreman, a builder. Then he became a faith healer. He became a healer, and my granny Ramson was a medium, and so we had a lot of spirituality in our life as well. We were very it was always encouraged, to look beyond what we know.
Yeah. For track 5, Matt, I'm going to ask you to tell me a song that soundtracked your time clubbing.
This was where it was a difficult question for me, because we didn't really go clubbing. We did do the Buffalo Boys scene at Astoria and stuff like that for a while.
So,
and that was...
Can I ask you about that? Because it's something that I saw someone done a fashion show on that, or like an art exhibition, on that, about 3 years ago, and my knowledge of it was very limited. Is this, we're talking about Maynard Cherry's Buffalo Stance was in response to that, and are we talking about Jamie J. Morgan and that stuff?
Yeah, there was a whole scene like Steve Strange and all these. It's a difficult one to explain, but all I know is like your bomber jackets, and you had all the patches and the badges, and that's really where the Bros look came out of, in a way, like the denim, the bomber jackets, and the Doc Martens. It was a whole thing, and you really could. It was almost like the bomber jacket was the modern day Vespa.
Yeah.
It was like you just really were mindful what you put on it, but people were just really receptive to just the way that you would make that I guess also Nick Cayman, as well, like, that whole kind of era was just incredibly exciting musically, and it was go global. It was, Astoria. It was that was the scene for me. I mean,
and so if I'm the song you've chosen,
but that was not part of that era. That was not part of, to me, that's I chose that song specifically because I felt that was one of the, to me, it was just that was such an infectious loop. And I want to use that word. That was when loops were dominant in pop music, and certainly in that kind of club scene at the time, that, acid house and all that stuff were coming in, and that was when people, even the general public, started to understand what a loop was.
Yeah.
But to me, I still think it's one of the greatest uses of a loop, and a record that conjures up such attitude, and it just oozes attitude. This does, and to me, I may be wrong, but to me, it's a very, very British record, and that's why I chose it, because it made me. That song always makes me want to move.
Yeah, I mean, we should point out for listeners, we're talking "Fool's Gold" by the Roses, and
yeah,
like I mean, for me as well, I think in '89. It was such an interesting time for music as well. I think, we'd started to see, like, house music happen. We'd started to see hip hop really explode, like, globally at this point. And, you had like new waves of hip hop, like De La Soul coming over. It was a second summer of love, acid house, soul to soul. There was so many things going on. And then obviously in Manchester, the Hacienda, and you've got the Mondays and the Roses and Primal Scream, and you've got all of these bands that are just cultivating this sound that just seemed to soundtrack that second summer of love, which was a term that the press obviously threw upon it. But for me, as a massive fan of Stone Roses, I love everything they've done, but Fool's Gold doesn't sound like anything else they've done.
Exactly right. And also another thing, what I'm realizing now, a lot of the songs I'm choosing, the bass heavy love, the bass line on that, you can't wait when that bass line comes in.
I mean, ridiculous.
It's just glorious, isn't it? It's like, and it stays steady. Like, I think that's the thing as a musician, where because that loop is so rock steady, it's like it's straight ahead. It does not unashamedly doesn't change. But that bass line just sits on the back of it, and just, what a tune.
Definitely. Well, I spoke about confidence earlier, and Matt, you've chosen a career in an industry that's probably a bit more competitive than hairdressing. You've chosen one of the most cutthroat businesses, and you've spoken many times about some of the industry things that might not have been particularly fair on you and your brother as a young man, and you've kept going, and new records are dropping now. So aside from confidence, would you say you're driven? I
would say, in regards to confidence, I just want to clear that up. I am a very confident man now. I'm very comfortable in my own skin. What you see is what you get. I'm fearless in regards to interviews, and if an interview is an interview, then I don't think they're doing their job. If it becomes a conversation, then they are.
Yeah.
And I think that
are we having an interview or are we having a conversation, Matt? I just want to know where I'm standing.
Conversation without question. I could do this all day long, mate. I just trust me.
Good stuff.
I could do this all day long, talk about music and listen to music.
Lovely.
We are definitely gonna have a beer when I get back. We got to have a beer, or five probably at this point.
Let's do that.
No, it's you're right. You have to have very sharp teeth in this industry because you're swimming with sharks, but you've got to know when to use that bite. And I've been through betrayal. I'm still going through betrayal this month. There's still stuff I'm dealing with. There's still people that come into your life that want to disrupt your space, and it's out of greed usually in this industry, but you just have to just stand your ground and know that that this too shall pass. It's just, you know, I've seen so many bands and experiences and just come and go, and it really isn't about hit records. It's about longevity. That is successful, no matter what career you're in, music or whatever you do. If you're still doing what you love and you're still in whatever career you're in, that is the definition of success. And I think that should settle people's minds. And I feel I am driven. But I feel that nothing is important to me. Nothing is more important to me than loyalty. Loyalty is freedom. And I have a saying, like, you can be loyal in front of me, and I'm grateful for that. But having my back behind my back and me finding out that you had my back, that is more important to me than any hit record, my bank statement, anything. To have people in your life that you dread saying goodbye to one day. And having, I have a little tribe, you know, and we just love each other and we look out for each other. So for me, that's the number one thing. I am driven, and I do want to prevail. The documentary that we did after the Screaming stopped, it was a cultural moment. It would change the way the documentaries we made. I think that it was so honest and brutally honest that I don't think people will approach a music documentary in the same way. I think I'm proud of that. I don't want to be, terrified of saying what we've done. And I want to do, with what I'm doing now with this new record, I don't want to make a pop record that's good. I want to make a pop record that blows people's minds. And I know I've done that. And I wouldn't want to be doing a promo circuit if I wasn't able to say that with absolute complete confidence. So yeah, I am driven, and pridefully so, but not to the point where I'm oblivious to people's feelings or what's important, like a good conversation with your mate and knowing that they know you're there for them, and also knowing you've got that in return.
Absolutely. I'm going to take you home for the next track, Matt, and I'm going to ask you for a favourite song from an artist from your home country. You went to Liverpool for this one.
I know, it's Strawberry Fields, right?
You went Eleanor Rigby.
Eleanor Rigby, okay. It was a tough one for me because to not include the Beatles in my life would be absurd. There's right now, all I'm listening to is the Beatles right now. When I get in my car, I'm a big car guy. I love getting into my little vacuum and putting on my music, and all I'm listening to right now is the Beatles. And there are so many songs from the Beatles that you could choose, and everyone says, "Oh, Strawberry Fields," but I mean, even that song, it just makes me so happy. And I think about, as a musician, the choices that were made and the effect that record had. Hello, sorry, call came in. And think about the effect that record had on massive bands like the Beach Boys, and musicians scrapped their album because of that album.
Yeah.
But when I hear Eleanor Rigby and I listen to the lyric and I listen to what George Martin did to the strings, I don't know if anyone's listened to the string only version of this song. I would highly recommend that you immediately download the string only version of Eleanor Rigby, because it just shows you he really was the fifth Beatle. It's miraculous, the use of counter melody.
Yeah.
The use of counter melody, it's almost inappropriate. It's two songs that just magically bond together. And it just makes me feel so much. This song makes me feel so much, lyrically, melodically, musically. I think it's one of the greatest songs of all time.
I couldn't agree more with you. And I've got very limited memories of studying music at school, but we had to study that record and we had to pull that apart. And I think that's the first time I read lyrics and something actually kind of went in. It wasn't just listening to the song and not really taking it in, but remember reading that and just thinking, oh, there's a story here. Oh my God, it's heartbreaking. And like you say, the string arrangement on Eleanor Rigby is, it's just different level. And I talk about the Beatles, quite regularly on here, because like any artist you speak to, they're gonna have to at some point reference the Beatles because they're the Beatles. And it's when you look at when they started their career and when the Beatles split up, it's quite a short period of time. And then when you look at what happened within them years, how everything was a reinvention, every album, just a giant step. It was just incredible. And yeah, I just think it's, it doesn't need for me to say that they're one of the greatest bands ever. It's a fact, isn't it? But yeah, just the fact that what they've done in such a short space of time is the thing that constantly amazes me.
Yeah, and I think, again, just when you listen to this record, you can literally left brain, right brain. You can listen to the song and listen to the string arrangement. Just as a musician, and the understanding of counting melodies, and along with a very, very distinct pop melody, it's just incredible how they managed to get these two to fuse together and make absolute sense. It's impossible. It's a movement. You find your body moving with the strings. You find your body moving with the melody of this song. So, yeah, I mean, true love for this song.
Matt, for the last record, you get to play Tastemaker, and I'm going to ask you to tell me a song that you think many people may not know that you would like them to hear. Can you remember what you sent over for this one?
I believe it's Bloodstream by Stateless.
Thank you for that, by the way, because I've never heard that before.
Oh, do you like it?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's painfully beautiful. And I think that the reason I love this song is because it rips me to shreds. Literally, as simple as this song is in many ways, it rips me to shreds because, you've got an into my bloodstream. And that one line is the only way you should love. And when you do make love to someone, and you know there is an exchange there of gargantuan proportion, there's an exchange spiritually, biologically, emotionally, and those are sometimes the things that you have to leave behind. And this song just rips me to shreds. I think it's beautiful. I love that it's electronica as well as acoustic, and I just think it's a song that not many people, not a lot of people have heard. But once you have this song in your collection, it's one of those songs that you'll go to, and you'll hurt yourself in a good way.
Absolutely,
it hurts you. It touches your heart, but it also reflects when you are in love. When you are in love, this song speaks to me on that level too. It's a very beautiful, and there's a saying, a good musician knows when to play, and a great musician knows when not to. And I think this is a really graceful piece of music, and a beautiful lyric and a beautiful melody.
Matt, we put together a Spotify playlist to accompany this podcast so people can go and listen to all of the records that you've chosen today. And as you know, we're getting into the second half of this year, and it's a going to hopefully be a way more joyous and connected 6 months. With that in mind, I'm going to ask you, Matt, what are you looking forward to from the rest of this year personally, and what's going to be happening professionally?
Can I just address something you just said? I hope it is going to be a joyous year.
Yeah.
But my suggestion would be to have a joyous year. Be joyous, and if your neighbour's got a nice motor, knock on his door and say, "I just want to say, love your new car."
Yeah.
And lift people up, and wish the best for people, and expect the same back. It's a much better way to live. And if we've learned one thing out of this, is that we need each other, and we miss each other. And the people that show you love can you can genuinely, you and I can change somebody's day right now. And I always say, call your strongest friend, call your strongest friend, because they're the people that usually need a phone call, because they're the people that people assume that they're okay. Yeah. Make a phone call, make amends with people. If you've got a beef with someone, get rid of it. But professionally, I've never been more excited about a record. I put my heart and soul into this. I have studied this, sorry, another phone call came in. I have.
That's your strongest mate ringing you, mate.
It is actually ironic. It is. This is, this is one of those moments in my life where I'm really proud that I'm still current. I know that I'm current. I know the record's current. I know I've worked with the best people in the industry, from Babyface to Sterling Sound to Jacob Bunton and Jay Rustin, all these incredible, and Day by Day. I'm so proud of this record, and I'm looking forward to come home and do some VIP stuff that we're doing just solely caters to the fans. It's coming out on vinyl. We're recording 11 videos for this album so that you can actually sit back and watch the album, not just listen to it. I'm going to LA on the 8th to do the next single. We've got a 5-single release, and if it goes well, we're going to do it all 11. And it's I'm just happy to be in the game, my friend. I'm happy to be having conversations like this and talk about music. I'm happy to be talking to people that have, are comfortable in their own space. And I just, I'm looking forward to, finding more happiness, more, a couple of new mates and sharing the stage again, and really keeping it simple, not sweating the small stuff, and also always trying to say, I always want to be someone that will say the word sorry first.
Matt, it's been such a pleasure talking records with you. Incredible choices, and yeah, it's just been a really lovely hour chatting to you, mate. So thank you so much.
You're a legend, mate, and I really love your vibe, mate. And you thank you for what you do and lifting people's spirits, because I know how hard it is to create content and week after week, and it can be extremely tiring. And anyone listening to your podcast, just take a second to acknowledge, the volume of work it takes for you to do what you do. So thank you, mate.
Oh, mate, absolute legend. Matt, thank you so much.
Right, much love, bro.
I'm going to just press stop on here.